Welcome to the Inventors Edge podcast, where insight meets innovation. Whether you're sketching your first idea or refining a finished product, you're in the right place. Our mission is to equip you with the tools, expertise, and clarity you need to succeed as an inventor, while helping you conquer fears and limiting beliefs that may be holding you back. I'm your host, Scott Putnam, founder and CEO of Inventors Edge. Before becoming a seasoned product development coach, I was a wide-eyed inventor with a head full of ideas but no clear path forward. I know firsthand what it's like to feel stuck, uncertain, and overwhelmed. Fast forward to today, I'm a successful entrepreneur with multiple licensing deals and products on the market. I'm committed to helping inventors like you overcome obstacles, conquer fears, and transform your ideas into tangible success through proven, actionable, step-by-step strategies that deliver real results. Join us as we bring in industry pros, share expert advice, and dive deep into the world of innovation. Ready to turn your ideas into reality? Let's get started. Today's guest is someone you're going to absolutely love. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by the operational side of launching a product like a lot of us have, I am so thrilled to welcome Ben Aldridge to the show. Ben has spent over a decade working behind the scenes with emerging consumer brands, helping founders build streamlined and scalable businesses. His specialty? Creating repeatable processes, finding cost-saving opportunities, and making small businesses run like well-oiled machines. In today's episode, we dig into the pitfalls to avoid when launching a product, how to find great manufacturing partners, when to fulfill orders in-house versus using a third-party logistics company, and so much more. Ben brings a wealth of practical advice for inventors, brand owners, and anyone really looking to turn their big idea into a scalable, sustainable business. Be sure to stick around until the end, where Ben offers some absolute pearls of wisdom. Okay, let's jump right into it. Hey, Ben, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Scott.
You bet. Super excited to have you on. And I know you're going to provide a lot of awesome information for our inventors and entrepreneurs. So let's jump right in. Tell me where you're from and maybe just a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I live in Austin, Texas. I've been here since 2011. And I've spent, my time here working with small businesses, in-house, doing operations, which to me means, sourcing, purchasing, fulfillment, as well as, customer service and essentially, some HR functions, basically anything that the business owner, doesn't necessarily have time to get to or the bandwidth to be able to focus on because they'd rather be developing and selling, their products. So, and it's been a fun ride. Over the past year, I've hung my shingle to start doing so fractionally for various brands. So, yeah, it's been great.
Nice. That's awesome. It sounds like you do all this stuff that a lot of entrepreneurs don't really like to do.
Yeah. And that's been kind of nice for me working with small businesses and with entrepreneurs who need a lot of help in a lot of different areas. And it provides me with breadth throughout my day and being able to work on different aspects of the business, which always keeps things challenging and interesting and all that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm sure you meet all kinds of people, all walks of life.
Yeah, it's really inspiring it's because I'm getting to meet with these creative types who have big ideas and who are oftentimes constantly generating ideas and being able to help provide some guide rails and steer things so that everything's moving forward on these projects. It's a fun challenge.
That's awesome. And with that in mind, I was just curious, like we work with a lot of inventors and entrepreneurs, and I talk a lot about how to avoid pitfalls and keep people on track, offer guidance and clarity and all those kinds of things. In your experience, what are some of the pitfalls that to avoid when somebody's launching a product themselves?
Yeah, and there are plenty of them, but hopefully folks aren't too scared to make a mistake, and almost everything we do is fixable. So that's an important to keep in mind. But what I found is the biggest piece of advice I have for folks is don't go it alone. Just to kind of find your tribe, find guides and mentors and a community along the way so that you can ask for advice because the things you're doing though they are special and unique, other people have done them in different, different iterations. And it's great to be able to learn collectively through, other people's experience. That's why, the Inventors Edge stuff is so powerful and so cool to be able to have that network of people who have been there, done that, and can kind of, understand where you're coming from.
Yeah. There's definitely power in that. I think inventors in general, we're kind of lone wolves and we can figure it out. We can count on ourselves. And a lot of times we go down that journey and you get to a point and then you start to feel kind of stuck because it's like, well, do I do A or B? I don't know. It'd be nice to talk to somebody about that
Right.
or have other people that have already been down that road that can just really help kind of guide that. A couple of specific pitfalls. I mean, what are you finding people really, what are some big mistakes that you see inventors or entrepreneurs making when they're jumping right in?
Yeah, there's plenty of them. The biggest one is kind of, be aware of your blind spots. And to that end that we were talking about, leaning on your community, just kind of know that, like, at least for me, like, I'm not going to be anybody's marketer, but if one of my clients needs help, in that department, I can be able to reference a network of folks who I've worked with in the past, or that sort of thing, to be able to lend their expertise.
Yeah.
Another pitfall I've seen is owners being intimidated when talking with vendors, and
Mhm.
thinking that, the price is the price is the price, and what they say goes. And, even as a small startup, like, don't underestimate your own buying power. Think it's
Yeah.
important for folks to know that the person on the other side of that conversation really wants your purchase order. And if their first offer isn't in alignment with what you need as far as price or deliverability or payment terms, what have you, it's all a dance. It's all a negotiation. And there are tools you can do to say, do a request for proposal from multiple vendors and say, hey, this guy can do $30 a piece. Can you beat that? Those conversations are, they're really powerful. And even incremental savings like that, when you compound them over multiple purchase orders, makes a big difference.
Right, sure. Yeah, and it's funny, it's an area that, I've done a lot of coaching for people with a licensing model, getting the product to companies, the company licenses it, they take it, they run with it. And one of the things I was excited about when breaking out and creating Inventor's Edge is to really help people with the venturing model. And it was such a learning curve for me getting into that and figuring out as a vendor with a product, how do I reach out to companies? What do you say? How do you put pricing programs together and all those kinds of things? And it's one of the things where you don't get a lot of second chances. If you're stumbling through that and you're really struggling a lot, or you're saying the right things, or you don't have things set up the right way, a lot of times you don't necessarily always get another shot at it.
Yeah.
Having some help is so key, so huge.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's always best just to be able to lean on the folks who have been there before. But I mean, really, like, when you're sourcing manufacturers, for example, like, you hold all the power in that conversation. If you don't get it right the first time, oftentimes there are many other competitors you could go through, or even going back to the same vendor.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a thing. That's always a scary proposition for inventors or entrepreneurs that are bringing especially their first product to market. Like, how do I find the right manufacturers? How do I know if I'm getting ripped off, or how do I know I'm getting a good price or good terms? Or with that in mind, I mean, what advice could you give for, let's say, a brand owner that's got a consumer packaged good that's launching their first product?
Yeah. So are we talking about manufacturing, or?
Let's do, yeah, manufacturing, and then anything else, like, okay, here's a couple of pearls of wisdom that are really going to help you out.
Yeah. So with the manufacturing bit, and how to be able to find a manufacturing partner, I always tell people, like, don't try and reinvent the wheel. Don't try and go it alone. Like, go find out, who do your competitors use. So there are services out there like Import Genius or Trade Leaves, where you can actually see where the factories are that other brands are using. So that's super helpful. And of course, attending trade shows and talking with brands. or the modern day equivalent of looking through like a Thomas Register or the Yellow Pages, like look on Alibaba and be able to find folks who are making this stuff.
Yeah, great.
In my experience, though, the vendors have come to me, which has been really useful. So just knowing what I do on LinkedIn and being able to have that visibility, I've actually worked with vendors in the past who have reached out to me with a cold call, and
Oh, wow.
the next time that I've done a request for proposal, I've sent it their way, and then that negotiation begins. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. The first time I looked at Import Genius, I felt like all of a sudden I got like these X-ray goggles put on. Like I can see who's buying what from where. This is insane.
It feels like a cheat code.
Yeah, it's great. And for our listeners, it's importgenius.com, I think is the website, isn't it, Ben?
I believe so.
Yeah, very, very cool.
Yeah.
How about any other advice for, let's say, maybe somebody's been trying to license their product and now they're really thinking about venturing it. They're not sure. There's a lot of unknowns. What
Yeah.
if you had to have one golden nugget, what would that be for advice?
The best advice is just keep track of the dollars and cents, and just make sure that if you're thinking about venturing, that you've got as many, because you'll never have all of the costs in mind, but as many of the costs in mind as you can, and just create those financial models. And if Excel isn't your thing, find somebody who can help you with that,
Yeah.
just to make sure that that it's viable, because it can be expensive to launch a new product depending on what that product is, and it may be several months before you've gotten your product and you're able to start selling and get money in the door. So keeping an eye on the dollars and cents is it's oftentimes the most important thing.
Yeah, I mean, crucial. That's something where I see a lot of people, there's a lot of opportunities to spend money in places that you don't necessarily need to, but it seems like it's really important and, you can learn some expensive lessons.
Yeah, that's definitely the case.
It's
So
nice.
yeah, but really, I think it's just about making a budget, modeling out your break even, paying attention to your cash flow, and then focusing on profitability as much as you can. Uh, I've worked with several brands in the past who have been focused on top line revenue rather than profitability, and it looks great to potential investors until the tide turns and it's time to start
Yeah.
making money.
Yeah. Yeah, you can have a lot of revenue, but you can also be bleeding money because you're losing money, even though you might be, millions of dollars a year in revenue, and you're losing
Right.
your butt on it.
If you don't have your costs contained for cost of goods and then your overhead, it's really easy to.
And is that something you get into the weeds with people on? I mean, you get into all of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So I love getting into like an income statement and seeing where all the dollars are being spent, and
Yeah.
just kind of questioning, just having a healthy amount of, does that seem right?
Yeah.
And it goes a long way.
You're one of these guys that has that superpower of like knowing how to look at spreadsheets and probably like spreadsheets. Some people love them, some people hate them, and there's a lot in between.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I mean, it speaks to my inner geek, I guess.
Yeah.
I love the power of being able to mine data to see, okay, what decision should I be making? It's a lot better than.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
the deer in headlights doesn't really help a lot of people. And I think making those decisions based on data is really important. There's, as humans, we're emotional creatures, right? We think we know, it feels right, but then you look at the data and the data is saying something totally different. It's like,
yeah,
okay, good to make decisions based on the numbers and the data.
yeah, and that's definitely something that I've run into with some of the some of the product designers that I've worked with, is that there are emotions tied to it. This is my baby, and
Yeah,
I
big time.
don't want it out into the world until it's absolutely perfect. And it's hard to make money with an idea that hasn't, been manufactured yet. So yeah, so until you actually have a product to sell, you're not selling.
Yeah. Yeah. There is that, this is my baby. And, there's that letting go and you have to get it out into the world and ideally following proper protocol with, protecting it through patenting and things like that. Um, but there is that moment where you kind of release it into the wild, which
Yeah.
I remember that feeling like, I think this is going to be okay. I hope it's okay.
And I've worked with product developers who have balked at the 11th hour. We're ready to launch next month. No, wait, you only
Oh,
get one chance to make a first impression.
yeah.
While that's true, don't be too precious with your ideas. Yes,
Mhm.
we'll iterate and you will have the opportunity to be able to make tweaks on your next reorg. So that's the other big piece of advice that I have is to keep your orders as small as you can. When you're putting out that first version of your product, you want to be able to have enough inventory to meet, whatever demand you've built up, but then gather feedback from the consumers and be able to make those tweaks. Because inventors are tinkerers, and you're gonna keep tinkering with your product throughout its lifespan.
Yeah, that's great advice too. Maybe you do a small first run, you get it out there, you get some feedback and realize you need to tweak your packaging or even tweak the product a little bit. There's opportunity to do that. Products change all the time.
Yeah,
And yeah, it's good to know that I think that takes a lot of the pressure off too.
hopefully, yeah. I mean, there are plenty of other pressures, like I
Yeah.
have that one as well.
Give you time to focus on all the other things that are freak you out or whatever.
But I mean, making sure that, like you said, you have your IP in place, and then you're in compliance with all the rules and regulations within your field. Just get a minimal viable product out there, see what happens, and then iterate, make it better. Make it how perfect you like.
Yeah. Yeah, you hit on something there. That minimal viable product is such a key thing too.
Yeah,
And I think a lot of us, maybe it's the inventor brain where we're always wanting to add more and add more and add more. And it's really the art of taking as much away as you can and getting to that minimal viable product. I know
yeah,
with Swat and Scoop, the original product was very different. I had like a sliding door mechanism and this different like handle, and it was much bigger, and it was just had a lot more going on. And the feedback I got was, dude, there's like too much going on with this. It's going to be too expensive. No thanks. Come back to us when you have something that's not going to cost so much to manufacture.
yeah. That's a great lesson. Not every category, is gonna need like the over-engineered Yeti cooler. Love
Mhm.
what those guys are doing, but like, not every item you interact with every day needs to be that luxury form, or I don't need Bluetooth in my Rubik's cube, that sort of thing.
Yeah. What? You don't have Bluetooth in your Rubik's cube? Come on.
Not this one. I'm old school.
Nice. Yeah, me too. Well, with that in mind, a lot of inventors, we are passionate about our ideas and we're really creatives, not necessarily business people, or maybe we hadn't had any business experience. I mean, what are some key steps that you might recommend for really just streamlining that product development and launch process if you had to come up with a few?
Yeah, so I've got a couple in mind. Mostly it has to do with staying organized. That both a product development project and a product launch, these are things that you will go through again and again and again as you develop your products. So create templates for yourself. And
Mhm.
I love task management software like Asana, where
Mhm.
you can set up projects, you can copy them for the next time. But yeah, my background in college was actually in music and in education. So, one of the things that they tell you in teacher school is backwards planning, and start with the end in mind, and then figure out, okay, what are all the milestones? What are all the steps to get there? And I know that's not, it's not
Mhm.
unique to education, but it serves us well in small business and being able to say, okay, for me to be able to have, product ready to deliver in my warehouse, what are the three things that need to happen, within a month of that? What are the three things that need to happen, or six things 2 months ahead of that? And, you set yourself up a schedule with the dependency. For example, I can't order packaging until I have a name for the product. Making sure that you can anticipate each of the dependencies along the line. And with that in mind, it goes back to lean on your community, and don't try and reinvent this stuff out of whole cloth. Go to the internet, go find product launch templates, look at a number of them, and then blend them together to create your own so that it fits with what you're doing.
Yeah. Great advice. I love the idea of creating the template, maybe finding some software like Asana that can really help keep things organized, like you mentioned earlier, and getting some help. I mean, I think that's a big thing too. I love coaching people through the venturing process and helping them avoid all those pitfalls and all of the would be potentially expensive mistakes. And there's, like we talked about, there's a lot of those. So that having that process as streamlined as possible is huge, because there's always things that are going to come up, right? It's never
Yeah.
a straight line.
Right. And it's not written in stone. So, you need to be flexible, but, be as organized as you can be, and make sure that, you've got a good plan for yourself. And when you need to make adjustments, you do.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Go ahead.
Yeah. One of those steps that got glanced over a couple of times for me over the past several years, it's the IP thing, and making sure that that stuff is rock solid from the jump.
Mm,
I've seen both patent issues and copyright issues, and that stuff is so avoidable. You need to engage with a good team early on, and make sure that they're doing a comprehensive search, and making sure that you're not stepping on anybody else's toes out there, because when that happens, it gets really expensive really fast.
yeah. Turns out patent infringement lawsuits aren't cheap.
Right. Or even before it gets to the court, people, who have IP claims, and can bully you into doing a licensing deal that's in their favor, instead of, on equal footing. And,
Yeah.
it's just so important to have that rock solid airtight.
Yeah, I use the analogy of like, hey, before you put a lot of your time and your money into this, let's make sure the runway is clear so
Yeah.
you can take off and feel good about it and feel confident about it. And that process doesn't have to be astronomically expensive either. I think finding good people that can do a really good patent search as a start is huge, and doing your own research as well.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah.
I have seen situations though where business owners have kind of gone on the cheap with the
Mhm.
with the patent search, and it doesn't save you money in the long run.
Yeah. Pay now or pay later, right?
Exactly.
So if we circle back a bit, thinking about the manufacturing side of things and finding a good manufacturing partner, you talked earlier about some of the resources, but how do you recommend? Let's say I came to you and I'm like, okay, I have this new carrot peeler. I have it designed. The IP looks really good. I have a prototype. I have a CAD drawing. How do I get these things manufactured? Like, where do you
Yeah.
usually point people?
Yeah. Well, there are any number of companies here in the US or abroad that can do that manufacturing for you. Go and find some that are already making carrot peelers or similar category items,
Yeah.
and talk to them about your design. Make sure that you've got your design buttoned up with the IP, of course, and make sure that you're getting NDAs signed from anybody you talk to before you hand over your designs. But yeah, just start the conversation with the manufacturers to vet them. One of the most rewarding challenges I had was being able to find manufacturers for some handheld consumer electronics in China. We the company I was working with had some legacy manufacturers who were very fastidious and very expensive. The economic tides changed, and it was time to start looking for something a little bit, more cost effective. So, I was able to do, quote requests from a whole variety of manufacturers over there. But then, how do you know that's going to be a good partner? How do you make sure that you're not getting yourself in some sort of situation where either there are labor practices going on that you don't agree with, or quality issues, capacity issues?
Mm.
So what I found was that there are companies who can vet manufacturers for you. There are third party inspectors. I used a company called I believe it's Qima, Qima, when I was looking at manufacturers in China, and they're fantastic. And the manufacturers are used to it. They have they have the routine down where the inspectors come in and they show them X, Y, and Z. And they give me 25-page report just outlining, all the things that I'm looking for. And they, of course, take feedback and, you know, specifically what are your key concerns. So valuable and so much more cost effective than getting on a plane.
Yeah, no doubt. And I know especially in China and Asia, the relationships with the factories are so important. I'm happy with my contacts that I have in China that are boots on the ground. Being able to trust that versus, there's a lot of contract manufacturers and it's hard to know how do you know they're good or they're not good. And, they can say anything, right?
Right.
When it comes down to it, it really, I think, especially longer term relationships are such a big deal.
Yeah. And it's hard to check references because, so much of that information is proprietary and, they don't want to disclose who their clients are. But, it all kind of starts with communication. And, what's the sense that you get as you talk with folks? Do they feel trustworthy? And that, is the least scientific thing I can I can tell you. I mean, you've got a gut instinct for a reason, right? It got you this far. If something smells weird, maybe there are other options.
Yeah, yeah. And again, I think that circles back to connect with the tribe, connect with people that have been there, done that, talk to them. It can save so much time and energy down the road.
Yeah.
So taking it a bit further, let's say, okay, great, found a great factory, have my product manufactured. Now I have a bunch of it in my garage. How do you get it to market? I know Amazon's, I think, probably the quickest, easiest. You can get your listing up there, you can start selling it. It's a bit of a process and you got to know what you're doing, and there's resources for that as well. But how does somebody know when they should be fulfilling it themselves versus a 3PL or even like a fulfilled by Amazon?
Yeah. The short answer, it depends, right? If I'm selling if I'm selling refrigerators, my garage is going to get pretty full pretty quick. So space concerns, the complexity of your fulfillment end of your supply chain, what is your distribution model? Are you strictly selling direct to consumer? Do you have a wholesale arm? What the more layers that you add to that, the more time, effort, energy, software, technology
Mhm.
it takes to be able to maintain. The other bit is variable capacity.
Mhm.
3PLs are very used to being able to ramp things up quickly in times of high demand, specifically Q4, and then being able to ramp back down as necessary. That's a
Mhm.
lot harder to do individually if you're hiring on help. So it all kind of depends on, a lot of those factors as well as kind of your own comfort level. The thing that I think about the most when I'm talking with entrepreneurs is the value of my time and the value of their time. And I had one business owner I worked for who was incredibly handy. He was, he was an amateur mechanic and previously a professional home builder, and he had a lot of. So when the factory needed to create a lab area, he was the guy who was going to be installing the floor, and I had to pull him aside and go, "What's your hourly rate? How
Yeah.
much is this floor costing you in missed opportunity when you ought to be looking at your books or doing marketing or selling product or managing or whatever it happens to be, when
Yeah.
this is something you could very easily hire out at a very reasonable rate.
Good
So
point.
yeah, I think that as small business owners and people who are venturing as they grow, they've really got to be very precious with their time and
Mhm.
use your time only for the things that will make the biggest impact on the business, assuming that there's enough volume of that to be able to, keep you busy.
Yeah.
If you've got crickets going on, then by all means roll up your sleeves and spend your time rather than your money to get things done. But ultimately, it's really important to know your own worth. And, are these tasks best served by me doing them or by me hiring them out?
Yeah, and I think that that's such a great point, and that really applies to every level of the business. If you're spending a lot of time on admin work, for example, maybe you hire somebody to help with that part of it, and really thinking about how you're spending your time, what's your time worth, what can you farm out to somebody else so you can focus on the higher level things that are going to generate more business and more profit.
Yeah.
Such a great point. And for those of you that don't know, 3PL is third party logistics, companies that can help you pack and ship and, you know, keep track of all that stuff.
Thanks for qualifying that. It's amazing how these acronyms get tossed around and folks can get lost on
Yeah.
one.
It's frustrating when you're listening, like, wait, what is that? They assume we know this stuff. I've never heard of that in my life. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to
But
clarify.
so we had talked about kind of the reasons to hire out. The reasons to keep it in house are if you have the capacity, like if you have a garage and your products don't need to be temperature controlled, you can certainly warehouse there and be able to set up Shopify and ShipStation to be able to print mailing labels. If your volume is sustainable enough, you can do that. And if things get a little more hectic than you can handle, it's pretty easy to find help. Uh,
Mhm.
you know, so it's oftentimes it depends on just how far into the weeds a business owner wants to get.
Yeah, yeah, good point. I know for me, once I got onto Amazon, I was doing fulfilled by merchant. So I'm fulfilling orders, but the problem is if we go away for a weekend or try to take a week, I would pack a bunch of swatters with me, all the packaging materials, the strapping tape, everything. So I'm like checking my email every day to see if there's an order. And then I had to figure out how do I print the label at the hotel and then find a mailbox. And it was so nice to turn that over to Amazon and just do the FBA.
Yeah. Yeah. I imagine like taking your product to the beach with you is,
Yeah,
but I get it. The orders are gonna keep coming. Who knows when? And you want to be on top of that.
yeah, yeah, you really need to be. For me with Amazon too, with FBA, it just opened up the market a bit, quite a bit more because a lot of people filter, they click the Prime button to filter out any that are not Prime because they want it in a day or 2 or 3. So
Yeah.
that was another thing. A couple more questions here. Just wanted to ask, in terms of like we talked about capacity for small businesses, are there some real specific tools that you like to use to really increase that capacity?
Yeah. Yeah. I've got a bunch. So the biggest piece in working with business owners is actually personal capacity, personal productivity. So
Mhm.
and I've been a bit of a geek, trying to optimize that sort of thing. And I do plenty of reading, but there's a guy named Matt Granados who has a company called Life Pulse. I've worked with Matt in the past through one of my previous employers, and I just really, really enjoy what he does for personal productivity. So he gets you in the habit of setting goals quarter by quarter, 90 days, 13 weeks at a time, uh, and then on a weekly and daily basis, going through your to-do list and just doing a brain dump on Sunday night. Here are all the things that I need to get through this week that I know of, and then just prioritizing them and categorizing them.
Mm.
Yeah, he uses a tool called Eisenhower quadrants. Are you familiar?
Vaguely. Tell
It's
just a bit about that.
It's basically setting up a four box grid and keeping track of, okay, what is aligned with my goals or not, and what is timely, on fire, or can wait. And just taking your to-do list and dropping them into that grid and saying, okay, this is hugely important, but it doesn't necessarily move the ball. Okay, maybe that's something you can delegate to an assistant. If it's something that's hugely important and is, timely as well, that's something you ought to take care of first on your list.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You hear a lot about, the other one I like is Gino Wickman with the EOS system, the entrepreneurial operating system. So, and Gino talks about rocks, and it's that whole thing about do the most important things first. And if there are videos out there that you can see where people will have like a vessel and they'll fill it with water and fill it with sand and fill it with pebbles, and then there's no room for the big rocks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the lesson there being, find the most important things, take care of them first, and then fill in the rest.
Yeah.
I don't think there's enough attention placed on personal productivity, and I think that that's a big piece. The other capacity stuff, administrative things, we had talked about Asana. I think that task management software like that is hugely powerful.
Yeah.
Especially if you're working with a team. You can assign tasks, and then you don't have to constantly ask for updates, because the system gets updated and it lets you know that, hey, Joe completed such and such task, and now Susie can start her task that was dependent on that.
Yeah.
So that stuff is important. I've done a little bit of work with BPO, business process outsourcing. So, working with teams. The one that I worked with was in the Philippines. These guys were fantastic, and it was a way to be able to expand your workforce in a very economical way. That was a huge way to be able to increase capacity when making that internal hire wasn't quite yet an option.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I tell people when I'm coaching all the time, a lot of times the things that are screaming the loudest at us are not always the most important.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
feel like it because they feel so urgent. And then you talk to somebody outside of that, Gino Wickman, or some of the other resources you mentioned, like just another set of eyeballs on things, and all of a sudden it's like, why did I think that was such a big deal?
Yeah.
Like, no, where you need to focus is over here.
I like to tell people that I'm allergic to false urgency. And I
That's
think
great.
that whenever somebody comes to me with something of, oh my God, Ben, it's 5:15 on a Friday and I need this yesterday. Do you? I mean, is this really going to move the needle, or can it wait until Monday? What is the stressor here? What is creating the demand? If that's real, okay, let's do this.
Mhm.
But chances are it's not.
Yeah.
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 And so many business owners have that innate high sense of urgency, and everything feels important, and everything, like you described, feels like it needs to happen right now. And, that's oftentimes not always the case.
Yeah. And if you're a lone wolf out there, trying to move things forward, you're trying to manage those feelings and that urgency, and without help or another perspective, it's hard to know. So you feel like you're constantly dealing with the things that are bringing your blood pressure back down that aren't necessarily moving you forward.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, it comes with experience, and it's all about just being diligent about your time, and
Yeah.
about, is now the moment when this needs to happen? Maybe.
Mhm.
But if it isn't, write it down so you don't forget. Hopefully it doesn't keep you up at night in the meantime, and then you get to it when you have the capacity to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's such a key thing. Not everything is an emergency, even though it feels like it might be. One final thing, in terms of entrepreneurs bringing products to market themselves, and then let's say somebody's fulfilling products themselves, What suggestions might you have for someone that's really trying to set up some customer service for a new brand? Because that seems like that would take a lot of time.
It seems, but it's not, it's not anything that's that's not doable. The best thing to do, well, I've got a list, but just have your customer service policies in mind before you sell a single product. Just think about, how am I going to how are customers going to contact me? Do I want my phone number and my email out there, or do I want to set up a separate inbox for customers to be able to reach out to? And then what are your policies going to be? Do you need to take your physical returns back? Can you resell them, or can you, use them for parts or what have you? Or is it just being wasteful having a customer mail something back to you that nobody's going to
Yeah.
be able to use? So thinking about things like that, thinking about, one thing that I changed when I came on board with a company several years ago was, cash back. They, when they took returns, they would, okay, we'll credit your credit card and have a great day. And I did the math, and it was costing them $100,000 a year.
Wow.
You guys have a big enough product line where you can offer somebody store credit, keep them as a customer, and just get them something else that is gonna is gonna fit their needs a little bit better. And your cost is now cost of goods and maybe shipping on that
Mhm.
on that second item, rather than all that cash just going back to the.
Yeah, that's a great point. And
Yeah,
what was their response? So they're like, "Wow, I never even thought of that," or
it was, oh my God, Ben, this is amazing. We want to give you a raise.
"Nice, that's
I mean,
awesome."
not literally, but it was a
Yeah,
aha moment for this business owner. Man, I got no friction, no resistance in implementing that right away. Um,
nice.
so I mean, they were lucky enough that they had enough products in their line that they could support that. Obviously, if
Mhm.
somebody's starting up with just one product, you know, store credit isn't going to do your customers any good. But as you introduce more and more, it's a goal to get there.
Yeah, that's such a great point, and again, points to the power of getting another set of eyeballs on things and allowing someone, a professional, the opportunity to look at your business, look at what you have going, and offer some good advice. Any final thoughts for Inventors Edge listeners?
Yeah, I mean, just, to your point, talk to folks like me. There are all sorts of people out there in the business world who, are helping out, helping people build companies, in a fractional capacity. And
Yeah,
the value of consultants is that they've been there before, they've done that, they see the pitfalls, and they can help you, steer you to avoid them. And I think that, obviously from my own self-interest, I'd love to work with more inventors and more people who are bringing products to market. It's always fascinating to learn about the new business models or the next greatest invention. And that's a really.
it's one of the favorite things that I love about working with inventors, all these amazingly creative minds, all over the world. That I'm always humbled by the creativity and just seeing things through such different lenses. It's really incredible. So how do people get in hold? Let's say people, how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, aldridgeoperations.com is my website. I don't know if you can, maybe put a link in the editing.
Yeah, we will.
But yeah. So, and like I said, my ideal customers are business owners or people who are bringing products to market, who love creating, cool, interesting, useful products. And love selling them, but need a little bit of help in figuring out how to get them to customers.
Yeah. More the operational side of things.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's yeah, and I'm planning on knocking on your door here shortly to get some help with SWAT and Scoop and just making sure, hey, are we running smoothly? Where are some opportunities where we could tighten our belt or cut some costs or all of that? So that's super exciting.
Yeah, looking forward to that.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for being on, Ben. Really excited to have you. I know I've there's a lot of other questions we could get to and talk through. So we'll definitely have to have you back on for another episode.
I'd love to do it. Yeah, this has been really great. Thank you, Scott.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Thanks everybody for listening, and enjoy the rest of your day. And we'll get Mr. Ben back on here again, hopefully soon. Invent with purpose, innovate with passion, and bring your ideas to life.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in to the Inventor's Edge podcast. I'm your host, Scott Putnam, and if you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to like and subscribe, leave a review, and please share it with fellow inventors. Your next breakthrough could be just around the corner. For more tools, tips, and resources, visit us at inventors-edge.com. Until next time, invent with purpose, innovate with passion, and bring your ideas to life.